My entire life, Iran has been presented as the enemy of the United States. That is not something invented overnight. That is decades of reality. A regime that openly chants death to America, a government born from a revolution that transformed what had once been a far more westernized nation into an ideological state driven by religious extremism. When I was born, Iran was different. It was modernizing, connected to the West, and positioned to be something very different than what it became. Then a revolutionary movement took control and turned that country into a regime that has spent nearly half a century exporting instability, funding proxy conflicts, and threatening the very nation I live in. And this is not abstract rhetoric. Iranian leaders and officials have repeatedly threatened Americans and even spoken openly about assassinating American leaders. After the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, U.S. authorities uncovered plots tied to Iran targeting former U.S. officials, including President Donald Trump, and security warnings were issued, treating such threats as matters of national defense. Iranian figures and clerics have issued calls for revenge and death against American leadership. These threats have been documented and taken seriously at the highest levels of government. So when Americans look at Iran, many of us do not see a distant conflict. We see a regime that has openly defined itself as our adversary for decades. President Trump attempted negotiation through pressure and diplomacy. President Biden chose a different path, easing pressure in ways many Americans believe restored leverage to the regime. People can debate which approach works better, and they should, because foreign policy should never be above criticism. Let me also be clear about something. I do not want America acting as the servant of any foreign government. I do not like foreign influence over American decisions. I do not support endless foreign wars or nation building. We have seen those mistakes before, and Americans are right to be cautious. But reality does not disappear simply because we are tired of conflict. For nearly 5 decades, Iran's ruling regime has positioned itself not only against Israel, but against the United States and against global stability itself. Terrorism and direct threats cannot simply be ignored because we also face serious problems here at home. Americans are struggling with rising costs, debt, and a government that too often forgets the people it serves. I am 48 years old, and all my life Iran has been the real enemy. Not China, not Russia, Iran. A regime that controls enormous regional influence while sitting over resources the world depends on, all under leadership openly hostile to America. At the same time, I understand the frustration Americans feel domestically. We have budget problems, economic pressures, and communities asking why their own government sometimes seems more focused overseas than at home. The real challenge is balance. A nation cannot neglect its citizens chasing foreign conflicts, but it also cannot pretend that global threats vanish if we simply look away. Strength abroad and stability at home are not opposites. They must exist together. The saying goes, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." That does not mean blind support for every military action. It means recognizing geopolitical reality. If forces inside Iran challenge a regime that has spent decades threatening America and encouraging violence against Americans, many people will see that moment as a potential turning point. Peace is not maintained by wishful thinking. It is maintained through deterrence, diplomacy, and clarity about who threatens freedom and who defends it. America's task is not choosing between fixing problems at home or confronting terrorism abroad. The task is doing both wisely, constitutionally, and with clear national interest guiding every decision. Because going right does not mean choosing war. It means choosing reality, protecting liberty, and refusing to ignore threats while still rebuilding strength here at home. America must learn to walk and chew gum at the same time. We must protect our interests abroad while rebuilding strength at home. Strength is not choosing one over the other. Strength is maintaining both. We must find ways to balance domestic responsibility with foreign policy reality, protecting Americans without losing focus on the needs of Americans. That is the challenge of leadership, and that is the challenge of our time. This is Go Right with Peter Boykin, the Constitutionalist for Liberty. Visit GoRightNews.com and stay connected across all platforms as we continue standing for liberty, truth, and constitutional responsibility. Until next time.